Have you ever heard of a tech company that sounds, well, less like a startup and more like a spiritual movement? So today we're going to dive into the really unique vision of ONPASSIVE, and we're going to use their own words to understand the powerful story it's built around its mission, its founder, and its promise to the world.
Just think about that for a second. A divine spark. Right away, you know this isn't your typical story about two friends coding in a garage. This framing immediately changes the company's purpose from, profit to something closer to prophecy. So what exactly happens when you fuse technology with divinity like this? Let's break it down.
All right, so the first big piece of this whole narrative is the mission itself. The message being sent is crystal clear. This isn't about just making money. It's about being an instrument for a higher purpose, a calling that's presented as going way beyond the typical goals of any business.
And right at the heart of this is a key concept they call divine empowerment. Now, you got to see how this completely flips the idea of success on its head. It's not just about what you can earn. It's presented as a literal act of worship. In this way of thinking, helping other people succeed is how you glorify the Creator. It creates what they call a cycle of blessing.
And that really leads to this core statement. The mission wasn't to build a company, it was to build hope. I mean, that's a simple but incredibly powerful phrase. It basically draws a line in the sand, separating this venture from traditional business and saying, hey, we're over here building a movement for global unity.
Okay, so if you've got a divine mission this huge, you need a visionary, right? Well, this brings us to the founder, Mufareh. And in this story, he's portrayed as much more than just a CEO. He's presented as the chosen instrument to carry out this grand plan.
Yeah, he's often described as a vessel, like a channel for a purpose that's way bigger than any one person. So this isn't the story of an entrepreneur who just had a clever idea. It's the story of a person supposedly chosen to deliver a divine vision to the entire world.
So what happens when things go wrong, when there are delays or challenges? Well, in this story, those aren't seen as setbacks or failures, not at all. They're reframed as divine tests, these necessary trials designed by a higher power to strengthen and prepare the leader for the massive mission ahead.
And all of this really builds up to this ideal of a servant leader. It's the idea that success isn't measured by what you get, but by what you give away. That leadership is really defined by humility. This philosophy lines up perfectly with the whole core mission of divine empowerment we talked about.
All right, so we've got the mission, we've got the leader, but what about the actual tools? The technology itself is framed as the next critical piece of the puzzle. It's not just software. These are instruments supposedly created with divine wisdom. So you see products like OConnect or OWallet, and the message is that these are not just another set of apps. They are the tangible tools for this mission. The narrative positions them as instruments for service and for creating abundance, specifically designed to uplift users, not to exploit them.
And this is where the story gets really, really clear. It sets up this huge contrast. On one side, you have the old digital world, which is painted as this place of exploitation and scarcity. And on the other, you have the ONPASSIVE vision, promising a totally new era of service and abundance. It's a classic story, right? Leaving a broken world behind for a promised land.
Okay, so you've got this divine mission, a chosen leader, the tools, but where do the people who join fit into all this? They are called founders, and the role is presented as being absolutely crucial to the divine plan.
And that's the thing, in this narrative, the founders aren't just seen as customers or users, they're active participants. Each one is described as a torchbearer, and their job is to take that light, that blessing, and carry it out into their own communities, spreading the hope.
The whole system is laid out as this flow of blessing. It's pretty straightforward. It starts with a divine spark, a power given to a leader. That leader then builds a system. Then, as founders join the mission, the blessings are meant to flow through them and out into the world, creating this huge ripple effect of positive change.
So, what's the ultimate goal here? What's the end game? Well, the vision goes way beyond just building a successful company. The stated goal is to create a true legacy, what's described as a global movement of light that will fundamentally change the world for the better.
And look, the promises here, they are absolutely monumental. We're not talking about stock prices or user growth. The goals are things like healing hearts, unifying all of humanity, and awakening an entire generation. This is the ultimate vision that's being put forward, a complete transformation of the human experience.
In this last quote, man, it just wraps the whole thing up in a nutshell.
It's a huge, bold declaration that connects one person's divine empowerment directly to a permanent, positive transformation of the whole world. That's the core promise at the heart of this entire narrative.
So, after all that, it really leaves us with a big question to chew on. When a business is framed as a divine mission, how does that change the relationship between the company and its followers? Because when customers become believers, the whole dynamic shifts. That's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.
All right, today we're going to dig into the vision behind a tech company called ONPASSIVE. Now, the source material we're looking at, it paints a picture of something much bigger than just a business. It's framed as a global movement with this one huge dream. So what is that dream? And what are the tools they're actually building to try and change the world? Let's get into it.
Okay, so right off the bat, you can see the source material is setting a pretty high bar here. This quote, it frames the whole story around a great movement. And that's no accident, right? It's a choice that's telling us to think bigger, not just about a new company, but about some kind of historic shift they believe is happening.
So, the big question is, where did this all come from? Well, according to the source, it all traces back to its founder, Mufareh, and a laser focus on one single fundamental problem. And that problem is inequality.
Yeah, the source really drills down on this idea of a world that's just starkly divided, the haves and the have-nots. And the vision that sparked ONPASSIVE was supposedly a direct answer to that. The goal? To build a digital ecosystem where the tools for success aren't locked away for privileged few, but are available to every single person.
And this is a really important point the source makes over and over. ONPASSIVE, they say, wasn't cooked up in some boardroom. It was supposedly born as this global collective. The picture they paint is of founders from all over the world, from different continents, all coming together around this single, shared vision for a fairer digital future.
Okay, so you've got this global community. What actually holds them all together? Well, it all boils down to what the source calls a philosophy of unity.
Right at the heart of their philosophy is this phrase you'll see a lot: AI with heart. And look, this isn't just a clever marketing slogan. The source presents it as a direct answer to that widespread fear that AI is coming for all our jobs. The vision here is totally different. It's technology as a partner that empowers you, like an assistant that works for you, not in place of you.
This really breaks down the huge mindset shift they're talking about. On one side, you've got the old way of doing things, all about individual competition. But on the other, you have this new vision of shared success. The goal, as they describe it, is to build a sort of digital nation that runs on collaboration, where one person's success is actually connected to everyone else's.
And this quote, it just boils that whole idea down perfectly, doesn't it? We rise by lifting others. This is presented as the #1 guiding principle. It's the core mechanic, the engine of how this whole collaborative system is supposed to function.
Okay, so a powerful philosophy is great, but how do you actually make it real? You need tools, right? Well, that's exactly what the next part of the source material dives into, the actual products designed to bring this whole vision to life.
Their whole approach is called automation with compassion. And the core idea is pretty simple. It's about merging two worlds that don't always go together: powerful tech and real human needs. So the tools themselves, they aren't supposed to be complicated or scary. They're built to free people from all those boring, tedious tasks so we can all focus on the stuff that actually matters.
And here they are, the actual suite of tools that make up this digital ecosystem. You can see they cover a whole lot of ground. You've got OConnect and OChat for communication, OShop for selling things online, ODesk for support, even a financial tool like OWallet. The whole idea seems to be creating this all-in-one platform so you never have to leave. Everything you need is right there.
But here's the absolute key: accessibility. The source really hammers this point home. You don't have to be some tech genius to use any of this. The entire system is designed from the ground up to be super simple and intuitive. It's all about tearing down those technical walls that so often stop people from getting their ideas off the ground. And that accessibility, that sense of empowerment, it leads us straight to the next huge piece of this vision. It's all about creating tangible, real-world results through what the source calls a promise of prosperity.
Now, at the very core of this promise is a really powerful belief, the idea that if you put financial freedom into the hands of good people, the world itself can actually start to heal. I mean, that's a seriously optimistic view of human nature, right? It's basically saying that if you empower everyday folks with money, they'll naturally go out and use it to do good things.
And the source is really careful to make an important distinction here.
This economic model isn't about a few people at the top getting rich. Nope. The stated goal is all about wealth distribution. It's about creating a system where everybody has a real chance to earn a living with dignity.
So what does that actually look like on the ground, in the real world? Well, the source gets pretty specific. On a small scale, it's about lifting families out of poverty. Zoom out a bit, and it's about funding schools and community projects. And on the biggest scale, the goal is to empower what they call the silent voices. You know, the small business owners, the students, the creators, and ultimately create a global culture of giving.
But this vision, according to the source, is about way more than just the here and now. The ultimate goal is thinking long-term. It's about building a legacy that will last long after the current technology becomes obsolete.
You see, the source presents this shared dream as something much bigger than a business plan. It's supposed to be a roadmap for the future. The goal is to set up a whole new paradigm, a completely new model, really, for how technology and people interact, to create a foundation that future generations can then build upon.
And that brings us right back around, full circle, to that core idea of AI with heart. The ultimate legacy they're talking about? It's building a digital world where kindness isn't just a nice idea you tack on at the end. It's actually coded right into the system itself, so that technology creates opportunity, not anxiety. And this last quote really sums up the whole purpose described in the text. We are here to build, to serve, to uplift. It's a mission statement that's all about contribution, about service, and about making a positive impact. It's really an attempt to redefine what a tech company can even be.
So when you step back and look at it, the source material we've gone through lays out a seriously powerful and ambitious vision. It's all about technology as this great equalizer. But it also leaves us with a pretty massive question, doesn't it? Can a single company's shared dream, no matter how big, truly reshape something as massive and complex as global society? That's definitely something to chew on.
All right, today we're going to dive into the vision behind ONPASSIVE, this digital platform that's built around something it calls a victory system. We're going to be digging into a document that lays out its whole philosophy, from its huge overarching mission right down to the specific tools it offers. You know, it feels like the whole vision really pivots on this one phrase, #victory with Mufareh. And the source material makes it clear. This isn't just some marketing hashtag. No, they're framing it as a real declaration, a moment that's supposed to signal that something totally new has arrived.
So that's the big question, right? What is this new ecosystem all about? What problems is it supposed to solve, and who is it really for? Let's break down the key ideas that the source document lays out for us.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with that declaration of victory. Then we'll go inside the new ecosystem and see what tools are actually in there. After that, we'll take a look at the role of its founders, dig into its mission of financial freedom, and wrap things up with its call to action. First up, let's talk about that declaration of victory. The source document doesn't treat this like a simple slogan. They're really painting this picture of it being the end of a long, hard road, but also the beginning of a whole new chapter for everyone involved. You know, the document really leans into the emotion here. It's pitched as this huge turning point. The idea is that after some period of struggle, this victory is the actual tangible proof that the system is real, and now it belongs to the people who supported it from the very beginning. That kind of language is clearly meant to create a powerful sense of ownership for them. Okay, so that's the big idea, but how does it actually work? Let's get past the abstract concept of victory and look at the real tools. What are the actual pieces that make up this new ecosystem? Well, the official definition they give is pretty aspirational, to say the least. It's not just a piece of software. They call it a living, breathing network. And the stated goals are all about empowerment and unity, which they say are achieved through this mix of technology and new financial models. So, to bring this down to earth, the document points to 4 main building blocks. You've got O-Connect for meetings, an O-Wallet to handle earnings, O-Verify for compliance stuff, and an O-Shop for new opportunities. The idea is that all these tools work together to create this one self-contained digital world for users. And this is really important. The language they use here is very specific. The document keeps calling it a victory system, and it says it's built on 3 main pillars: artificial intelligence, automation, and this core principle of fairness. Right, a system is just a bunch of code without people, and the document puts a huge emphasis on its early adopters. They call them founders and give them this pretty unique status inside the whole ecosystem. And here, the source draws a really sharp line. It paints this picture where old models just see you as a spectator on the sidelines. But in the ONPASSIVE model, they say the founders are co-pilots, framing them as these active participants who are actually helping steer where the platform goes next. And this co-pilot thing isn't just a nice phrase. It gets formalized with this title, MVC, which stands for Most Valued Customer. The document claims this status comes with some pretty big perks. They're supposed to be the first ones to benefit financially, they're given permanent spots in the ecosystem, and they get priority access. It's basically a promise of both financial stability and being on the inside track. So what's the end game in all of this? What's the why? Well, according to the source material, the entire ecosystem is built to deliver one thing above all else: financial freedom. And wow, this quote really sums up the whole promise, doesn't it? It's a really bold statement. It frames financial freedom not as just some possibility, but as the natural outcome for anyone who's a founder in the system. Now, the document goes out of its way to draw a line in the sand here, to separate its financial model from others. It says the engine behind it all is real products and real customers, and it explicitly distances itself from models that it says are based on endless recruitment. To really drive this home, the source gives us what it calls human stories of victory. These are specific little stories meant to show the global impact. We hear about a founder in Kenya paying for school fees with O-Wallet, a teacher in India using O-Connect for her classes, and a business in Canada using O-Shop to expand. Each one is held up as proof that the system has real-world value. Okay, so we've seen the system, we've heard the mission. Where does it go from here? The document wraps up with a big call to action for its community, one that's designed to create what it calls a global ripple effect. And this vision, it's bigger than just one person's success. They talk about this ripple effect having 3 parts: uplifting entire economies, empowering local communities, and in an age where we're all worried about data, restoring trust in digital platforms. This call to action is actually broken down into a super clear 3-step plan for the founders. First, they're told to rise and step into leadership roles. Second, to reset, to leave behind any old doubts. And finally, to refocus their energy on serving others and growing. It's a pretty clear roadmap for how members are expected to operate. And this last quote, it really captures just how big their ambition is. The source isn't positioning this as just another business. No, they're calling it a revolution. A total change in how we're supposed to think about technology and business. So that leaves us with this question, which comes straight from the claims in the document itself. Is this a new standard for how technology can be ethical, or is it a whole new blueprint for how to do business online? The source material would argue it's both, which leaves it up to us to figure out where it really fits in today's digital world.